advised to evacuate Taoyuan. My parents had already made inquiries into a house north of Taipei, near the farm where my mother was raised. It was in the same region where the actual Japanese were being sent, and my father therefore felt that it would be the safest. The house was large enough to accommodate my siblings and me, and all our preparations seemed to be in order. Then, the owner of the country house changed his mind, saying that it was insulting to be offered such a low rent by such a wealthy family. He had made inquiries of his own about my parents, and was not about to be taken for a fool. The negotiations continued long after many of my classmates' families had left Taoyuan for country houses of their own or to share. And so it was that I was still at school in Taoyuan the day of the air raid. I was, as usual, looking out the window, ignoring the teacher's lecture and the slow, constant burn of hunger in my belly. I wasn't a top student like Kazuo, nor did I have a mind only for sports like my second brother, Jiro. I was Saburo, the third son, and I recognized that I was different somehow from my brothers. I was different from these children all around me in their neat rows, filing their kanji into little boxes, contentedly reciting their arithmetic facts by rote. It was far more interesting to me, despite the real and ever-present threat of being struck by my teacher, to study the sky outside. I loved the sky, its boundless, lovely blue, the translucent, ruffled patterns of clouds stretching across it. I watched the clouds drift ever so slowly north, and then I saw 3 tiny spots moving toward us beyond. I jumped up. "Look!" I cried. My teacher reached for her stick to strike me, but at the same time the air raid siren went off. The class erupted in cries of alarm, and we hurried to our places in line. It wasn't the first air raid, and we all knew what to do. Some Japanese bureaucrat had decided that the best thing for a schoolchild to do when the town was being strafed was to run home. The siren wailed overhead, and my schoolmates ran out into the street, holding their writing boards over their heads. In previous air raids, I had done the same, but today, I had seen the planes myself and could hear the bombs and machine gun fire quite close by. The last thing I wanted to do was leave the shelter of the school. Heart thumping, I hung back in the doorway, but after all the children had left, the principal followed and locked the door behind her, shouting at me to leave. I ran to the woods at the back of the school and made my way along the path through them. My heart hammered, but I was in no rush either to leave the cover of the trees or to get home. As shells exploded on our railroad tracks and bullets sprayed the roofs of our houses and schools, I made my way from tree to tree, calming myself with the smell of the damp earth and the moss, and the occasional scent of blossoms from peach trees, now scarce, but once so pervasive that they had given the county its name, Taoyuan, Peach Garden. And then I heard the distinct cry of a young girl. I ran toward the sound and found one girl helping another up. They both looked about 8, like me, with matching school uniforms and the short, severe haircuts required by the Japanese school system. The one who had fallen, the one who had cried out, looked down at her bleeding knee. The other one bent over her, looking at her friend's wound. They both held their writing boards over their heads, as we had been taught to do during air raids. "Are you okay?" I shouted. They jumped and looked up at me in surprise. They were both very pretty and sweet-looking in the dappled light, with wide, sparkling eyes, and they instinctively leaned their heads together. "Are you okay?" I repeated more quietly as I drew near. I heard someone cry. "I'm all right," the girl with the bleeding knee said quietly. She blinked and looked down at her knee.